Welcome back to season 3 of Candid Conversations with Dr. Kelly. Today's guest is a true force, future Dr. Ebony Green. She's a wife, mom, SLP, business owner, ASHA topic co chair, doctoral student, and a proud Beyonce fan and Mariah Carey lamb. In this episode, Ebony shares her journey from classroom teacher to speech language pathology assistant to speech language pathologist and entrepreneur. She opens up about balancing it all: family, mental health, boundaries, and building an empire, while also shedding light on how concussion has personally affected her family and the challenges they faced navigating recovery. This is a powerful, honest, candid conversation about the grind, the growth, and the grace it takes to show up fully in every role. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations with Dr. Kelly. I am thrilled to have the guest that we have today. She is a mogul, she is an icon, she is all the things within the speech community and beyond. Ebony Green, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. And that introduction, I've never heard anyone call me a mogul before. So thank you for speaking that into existence. I love to manifest and to dream. And yes, I think I'm going to own that title, mogul, one day.
I call it how I see it. Yes, you absolutely are a mogul.
Oh,
I love to let my guests introduce themselves. So will you please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got into the speech field?
of course. So my name is Ebony Green. I am a speech language pathologist. I have been a speech language pathologist now for a little over, I believe it's been 6 years since I became an SLP. I actually started my career as an SLPA, and that was about 12 years ago. Actually, might be closer to 13 because it was around the time that I had my first child. So I transitioned to speech after being a classroom teacher for 4 years. I was a teacher in a program called Teach for America. And it was during my time as a teacher that I realized that so many of our kids with special needs were not being given the attention that they needed to be successful academically. A lot of my kiddos in my classroom were struggling with speech. And because I was so overwhelmed with the 30 kids I had to teach to pass a state test, I didn't have necessarily the time to give them that attention to support their growth as they struggled with their speech issues, and as they received their interventions. I didn't really have the time to focus on helping carry that over into the classroom. So that always kind of just made me feel like I could be doing more. And I actually spoke with the speech language pathologist at my school one day after having an IEP meeting, and she spoke so much wisdom, and just she was very inspiring with her words when she said that she could see me potentially being a speech language pathologist. And I don't know why I'd never heard about speech language pathology before, because it's obviously an amazing career and very adjacent to education, which is what I was in at the time. Um, and so I just started to do some research to figure out how I could become an SLP. And I started taking leveling courses, and it was a 10-year journey for me because I did not have a background in speech, because I was going to school part-time and still working full-time. It took me 10 years to become a speech language pathologist. And I started out just taking one class at a time of leveling courses, and then finished those, then applied to grad school and worked the entire time I was in grad school. But even though it was such a long journey, it was so worth it because I absolutely love what I do. Now I own a private practice, and I have been in private practice now for 7 years almost. And I coach other SLPs on how to successfully scale their businesses. I have a team of 100 people who support 200 patients a week in our clinic and in home. And we also do school contracts throughout Arizona and Texas. So that's me in a nutshell.
Oh my gosh. Yes, mogul, lean into that. That's amazing. For our listeners, could you explain what leveling is? Because there could be someone listening who is very interested. I've gone to schools and talked about our wonderful profession. And like you, I didn't know about the profession. But then when I talk and, teachers are listening, they're like, no, what's this profession called again? So could you explain what leveling is and then talk about your entry into being an SLPA?
Of course. So leveling is basically there are courses that you have to take in order to even apply to a speech language pathology graduate program. So if you have a major outside of communication sciences and disorders, there are certain courses that you have to take in order to apply to graduate school. So for me, my background was in communication studies, which is like radio, television, film, all the communication stuff related to business, but not necessarily communication sciences and disorders. So I had to go back to school to get those communication sciences courses taken care of before I could apply to graduate school. And they were very interesting courses. They gave me a solid foundation. And so because I took those courses, I was eligible in Arizona to apply to become an SLPA. And so I submitted my application while I was taking courses and eventually was able to become an SLPA. So I was an SLPA while I was in graduate school. And that was such a huge benefit because I was getting on the job training and I was getting hands-on experiences while learning, how to treat patients. And so I highly recommend if anyone has the option to work while they go to school and start out as an SLPA before they become an SLP, I would suggest doing that because I really learned a lot and I felt way more prepared once I started my private practice, which I actually started right after my CF.
Which is impressive in itself. They always say go out and like get experience. You got your CF experience, and then you launched this amazing business that you have. And I
Yeah.
heard your story in another podcast. You were being interviewed by somebody else, and you were it's amazing how parallel our journeys are. I'm a second career coming into speech as well. I was a journalism major in undergrad as well. So I did have to go and do like the post-bac work and take the courses, become a special student, all of that.
Yeah.
I did not do, we call them slippas here. I wasn't a slippa when I was working, but I did work as a pharmacy tech. But same thing, I wanted to like understand what medications were, how they interact with each other, what they're for. I figured that would be really good with like getting through chart review without having to wonder like, what does this drug do and why are they on it? So
Yeah.
thinking about the future and how it can benefit, like being very wise and intentional with your time. So, speaking about that, you are, like we said, a mogul, but you also balance so much. You are a great wife. You post pictures of your husband and how you seem to be so intentional with your time, making sure that you guys have your time. You're a great mom. Present for games and helping with homework, and I really loved this image that you put up on your stories where you were like traveling and showing these flights that you're on and these calls that you're on. And then at the end of the day, you had this picture of you holding your kids and watching TV. Your husband was on the other end of the
Yes.
couch. And it was just like, this is what you're doing it all for. And it just like tied everything together so beautifully. So, for other busy moms out there, entrepreneurs, all the things, how in the world do you balance it all?
Well, I guess like you said, you kind of have to be a mogul in the sense of, you're creating something, but at the same time, you have to be present for your family. You have to be able to grow not just your business, but pour into your children, pour into your marriage. So I think that perfectly describes. And you said mogul, I thought mommy mogul. That's what I think of. But basically, I've always been someone who has balanced a lot. I was the first person in my family to go to college and become a college graduate. I was the first person to get a master's degree. And during those times, I was working because I didn't have necessarily the financial means to not work while I was in school. Um, I volunteered because I knew how important it was to stand out when you're applying to colleges and different programs and scholarships. So I always had to balance a lot. And I just became used to knowing how to prioritize things, Setting boundaries. I am really good at setting boundaries, um, and working until you get to a point of n- understanding how to become smarter with how you're working and not working as hard. So, every I feel like every thing that you start, every startup, whether it's a business or a new career, a new venture, every startup period has moments of having to grind. I know that we don't like to talk about grind culture, and I don't necessarily agree with grind culture 24/7, but there's going to be a point in which you're going to have to grind when you start something new. That's just how it is, because you're learning, you're getting your feet wet, you're kind of getting your name out there if you're building a business, for example. But the goal should not be to be in grind mode for the rest of the time that you're doing this thing. So you learn how to become more efficient. You learn how to set boundaries. You learn how to do the thing that took you 2 hours to do in 45 minutes. And then you learn how to do it in 30 minutes, right? When I think about when I was a new clinician, it would take me 4 hours to evaluate a student. In the school setting, you have to do the speech, the language, all that stuff. So it would take me like 4 hours. I kept practicing and learning how to become more efficient. And now it takes me like 2 hours tops. So I kind of went on a tangent, but how do I balance it all? I balance it by learning how to prioritize, setting boundaries, and learning how to work smarter and not harder.
I love that. Well, threw a lot of things out there that you do, but we cannot forget that you are a future doctor. You are pursuing your doctorate and you are continuing to volunteer for ASHA, which is our national
Yeah.
organization for all speech therapists. I was a topic coacher last year, so were you. You're doing it again this year. I completely commend you because all of the work that goes into all of that and organizing and whatnot. How are you balancing school and the volunteer work as well?
Yeah. So school has definitely become something that has been unexpectedly busy. Like I knew I was going to be busy, but I didn't expect it to be this busy. And what I mean by that is that when you are in a doctoral program, a lot of what you are working on are original pieces of work, original theories, original frameworks. So the brain power that it takes to create something original, the amount of time that it takes just to think about how you're going to actually complete this assignment, it takes a lot of time. So how I'm balancing that now is by saying no to other things. I'm still volunteering with ASHA right now. I'm still doing a lot of things that I signed up for or agreed to prior to starting my doctoral program. But I've now decided that going forward, I'm going to be more selective with the things that I say yes to, because this amount of work that I've accumulated through, being in a doctoral program now for a year, it's starting to pick up, and I can see down the line that I'm not going to be able to do all the things that I'm doing right now. So I had to become more intentional about what I want to do and what I don't want to do. And if I say no to something right now, that doesn't mean no forever, but it means no for the next 12 to 18 months until I finish my dissertation and I graduate as Dr. Ebony Green. So it's all about knowing what to say yes to, what to say no to. And I will admit, it is hard for me to say no to things. I want to please everyone. I want to show up for everyone. But what I'm learning about myself in this program is that I cannot say no to or yes to everything. So I'm going to repeat that. What I am learning in this program is that I cannot say yes to everything.
That is a great tip for other doc students out there who I'm sure feel your pain. I'm glad that you are speaking to this, and I think this is going to help people who are considering their doc programs, who are in their doc programs and not feeling alone. But what I always say to doc students is there are, and I can't remember the exact percentage right now, I think it is up to 4%, but there are 4% of people in the world who hold a doctorate, which means that's 4% of people who did what others couldn't or wouldn't. And so the way that you are setting these boundaries and setting yourself up for success is admirable. And I am just so excited to welcome you into the 4% because I know you're going to be a great doctor when you're done.
Thank you. I know the light is at the end of the tunnel, but it's going to be a journey for sure.
Yes, just do what you need to do. Take your moments, take your time for yourself. But that leads into my next question for you, which is what do you do for your mental health? How does balancing all of that um incorporate or play a role in your mental health? How do you keep your peace and your happiness?
So spending time with my family is one of the ways that I recharge. It's one of the ways that I decompress. I enjoy spending time with my husband and my kids. And I know it might even sound cliche because which mom doesn't like to spend time with her kids and which wife doesn't like to spend time with her husband, but um because I am involved in so many different things and I have to show up a certain way as a leader and as a CEO, it's nice to be able to just be mom sometimes or, to just be a wife and not have to worry about all the other things that um, consume, my time. So I'm very intentional with spending family time. My husband and I try to go on date nights as frequently as possible. And my kids, they are involved in so many different activities from soccer to basketball to track. Um, they keep us busy. So if we are not at school or work, we are usually at one of their sporting events, or my husband and I are on some sort of date night.
I have a quick question for all of my fellow speech language pathologists. Are you on the hunt for fun, functional, and diverse therapy materials for both your pediatric and adult clients? Well, let me put you on to something I absolutely love and use in my private practice: Cognishine. If you haven't heard of it yet, Cognishine is a digital platform designed to support speech, language, memory, attention, executive function, and more. It's science backed, clinically effective, and works beautifully for both teletherapy and in person sessions. But what really makes Cognishine shine? It's completely customizable. You can tailor exercises to your client's specific needs, whether you're targeting speech sounds, supporting recovery after a concussion, or strengthening cognitive skills post stroke. It's become a game changer in my sessions, and my clients absolutely love it. So, if you're looking for a tool to elevate your therapy, check out Cognishine and tell them Dr. Kelly sent you. I love that. Intentional family time. I know that your kids are getting one heck of a childhood. So, bravo to you. I always say you're such a good mom, and I really mean that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm very blessed to also have a supportive partner. So, um, I often forget to mention it, but one of the ways that I am able to balance all of this is because my husband is very, very supportive and he will change his schedule if he needs to. He'll pick up the kids if I'm at a meeting or whatever he needs to do to try to make my life easier and help me with all the unpredictable things that can happen sometimes when you own a business or with all the challenges that come when you are in a doctoral program and you're trying to finish something to meet a deadline. Like he is willing to step up and help. And I think that's very important so that you have that balance as well.
Absolutely. Shout out to your husband for all the support. And he also helps and plays a role with the business to some extent, doesn't he?
He does, not as much as he used to. So when we first got started, we were all about saving and trying to, use our own skills and talents to do the payroll. And he was doing all the financial forecasting and all that stuff. So he still does do some of that stuff, but he's not as involved as he was before because I've luckily been able to delegate some of those tasks. So now, I have someone doing payroll. I have a fractional CFO. So what he does now is definitely more of like an advisory role. And then he also will, from time to time, meet with some of the other team members that I have who do like our financial reporting and stuff like that. But when I first started out, he was kind of the go-to financial person for me because I don't have a background in finance and I don't know numbers like he does. So he was the person to say, nope, that's not what you need to buy right now. That's too expensive. You need to focus on getting some clients. And then when you hit this number, then you can go get that new clinic or that new whatever equipment that you want. So he really helped put into perspective how important it is to start your journey in private practice with as little debt as possible. And so that's one thing that I'm really grateful for because I know not everybody has access to someone who has that type of financial um, education and background. He has an MBA in finance and he works for a really large tech company and does their finance stuff. So yeah, it was definitely beneficial to have a spouse who could help with that side of the business. And maybe eventually we'll work together again when he decides to leave corporate. But for right now, I really enjoy us having, the opportunity to collaborate on the business, but I don't have to be his boss necessarily.
That's always a plus. So we can tip our hat to your husband for essentially helping to scale because you have definitely
Yeah.
scaled in a very impressive way.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Knowing your numbers and having that financial insight is critical if you want to scale. A lot of times, we think we're making money because we see the money coming in, but we don't see the money that is going to go out. As you grow, you accumulate more expenses. So knowing how to foresee those things before they actually happen, having more payroll expenses, having to pay more for insurance, having to pay for a bigger building, like all those things are things that happen when you grow. So it's not just making more money that allows you to scale. It's also knowing your numbers and knowing how to make educated decisions on spending.
And you literally teach other SLPs how to do this.
I do, yeah. So I started in 2020 teaching a course called the School Contracting Masterclass. And I started teaching that course because during the pandemic, so many people who owned private practices were not able to stay in business. A lot of people had to shut down. And also they were just struggling to, you know, make ends meet and to maintain whatever income they had prior to COVID. And so I actually won a huge school contract that summer. And I was like, I should teach other SLPs how to get contracts with school districts because my school contracts, they saved me during COVID. So I wanted other people to have school contracts as an option to keep their doors open. And I posted in a Facebook group if anyone was interested in learning how to get a school contract. And the response was overwhelming. I had hundreds of replies. And so I was like, okay, I guess I need to make a course on how to do this. And initially I was going to do a 1 hour course. But when I thought about all the things you need to know to not just, you know, know how to look for the contract, but to actually win a contract, there's so much information that you need to know. I was like, I have to make this a masterclass. Like this needs to be a 5 week course. And so I made it into a 5 week course. I remember not wanting to charge people because I was like, I don't know how much to charge. And, I just want people to have the information. But when I thought about how much time it took me to make that course and how detailed I am when I teach things, because I was a teacher, um, I wanted to be as detailed as possible. I wanted to provide as much information as possible. So I was like, no, I'm going to charge. And I charged $250 for my first cohort. And I had a coach, a mentor who was like, you need to charge a lot more because if someone gets a contract, they're going to be making minimum 6 figures. Right. And so I was like, okay. So I had to work my way up to feeling comfortable to charge what the course is valued. And now, of course, I've added more to the course. I've helped hundreds, like over 250 people have taken my course, and many have gone on to secure school contracts. And when we add up how much money people have made just by taking the course and getting contracts, it's in the millions. It's in the millions. So it makes me feel really good that I was able to help some people explore this new opportunity and scale their business through school contracts.
Yeah, what I love about it is your genuine desire to help others. And there can be a level of gatekeeping in business in general, definitely within our profession. And I just commend you for having that original thought of other people should know this information so that they can eat too. And I
Yeah.
have that same thought process where it's like we can all work together, and if there's information out there, I want other people to have it. And so I love that you share the same sentiment.
Well, thank
um,
you. And yeah, I agree. Collaboration over competition.
1000%, 1000%. I want to hop back into some family stuff. I want to talk about brain health because your son, Zach, recently suffered a concussion playing
Yes.
basketball. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so happy to help you in any way that I could when you reached out. And so, for listeners, could you share about that experience?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my kids are very involved in sports. My son plays basketball and soccer. So most of the time they're either at a game or at a practice, or they're at home playing, with their friends. And so my son was playing basketball with his friends at our local in our community. And I was traveling that weekend, so I got a text message from my husband saying that he had gotten hurt, but that he was okay. And then a few minutes later, I got a phone call from my husband, and he was like, "Okay, I think he might have had a concussion." And I was like, "What? How is that even possible with basketball? That's not football, it's not soccer." And so he explained that my son was playing with some other kids, and two kids bumped heads. Him and another kid bumped heads, and my son fell back and hit the back of his head on the court. So um, he then started to demonstrate signs of a concussion. He was really tired. He started vomiting, and he just wasn't himself for a little bit. So my husband, was like, "Well, I'm going to monitor it and see if we need to take him to the ER." And of course, me as a mom, not being there and worried, I'm like, "No, take him to the ER right now. Like, he needs to go be seen." And so 30 minutes later, my husband's like, "Okay, I'm going to take him in because he's still like just seems disoriented. He's still not able to eat without throwing up." And so he took him to the ER. And unfortunately, they did not have very much information about whether my son had a concussion or not. They said he's demonstrating signs of a concussion, but um, they can't determine whether he had a concussion or not because he wasn't showing all the signs of a concussion. And I forgot what signs they said he wasn't showing, but um, for me, it was like, okay, he's never hit his head and started throwing up. He's never hit his head and said he was really tired. Um, it seemed very obvious to me. So I reached out to you because I was like, I need someone who actually knows about concussion and who is a brain health expert, to just confirm that I'm not crazy thinking that he had a concussion, because the ER is not really saying that he did. And so, of course, we spoke, and you were very, very helpful, and um, pretty much what I thought. You confirmed, like, yeah, that's not normal for him to be doing that. That probably is a concussion. And then just helpful with like what to do afterwards, because there was no information given to me about, should he go to school? Should he start playing sports again? Like, does he need to be on bed rest? Like, no information was provided whatsoever on what to do next. They just said to go home, monitor it, and that it was okay for him to get some rest if he needed to sleep. Um, but nothing other than that. And they told us to follow up with our primary care physician, which I did. We took him to the doctor the next day, and same thing. They were like, "Well, he probably did kind of have a concussion, but he seems to be okay now." And they did say to not let him go to PE for, I think, a couple of weeks. So that was the information that I got from those healthcare providers. But reaching out to you, I just felt like, you know, I got the support that I needed, and that kind of the answers that I was looking for. And I expected that at minimum from, some of these physicians that we saw, but for whatever reason, they don't have the same level of training and knowledge. So thank you to you and to our other professionals who provide the level of care that's needed when situations like this happen, because I felt completely lost as a mom.
Well, thank you for saying that. And it is my pleasure. This is my passion. So raising awareness about this topic is, what I am on a mission to do. So I'm very glad that you reached out and that I was able to help and that Zach is doing much better. I
Yes,
did
he is.
periodically check in. I didn't want to annoy you, but I was like, okay, I'm thinking about our son. I'm hoping that he's okay. And like I said,
Yeah.
I'm glad this turned out to be a story to tell versus something that's ongoing. So very glad that
Yes.
he is doing much better. But you said something there at the end. I was going to ask you, as a mom, how does that feel when you walk into a hospital and you're looking for answers and the response is, we don't know much? What does that feel like?
It feels like, you know, um, we have to basically become our own advocates and we have to educate ourselves. It feels like you don't have support, almost like you kind of have to just figure it out on your own. And so that's what I did. I reached out to you. You gave me so much information. So I was even educating my husband after talking to you, like, okay, well, I know this is what you read, but this is what Kelly said because she is an expert at this. So we need to listen to her. And I think one of the things that we were going back and forth on was the effects, the long-term effects of the concussion, because nobody brought those up. Like the doctor, nobody brought those up. So I was telling my husband, like, well, we just need to be careful because there are long-term effects. Like he can end up, needing extra accommodations in school, or, just we don't know how it's going to affect him beyond next week, right? And so he was like, well, a lot of the like stuff that I've read hasn't really mentioned anything about long-term effects. I'm like, I know, but there are long-term effects. That's why we as speech language pathologists treat patients who've had concussions. So it did feel, kind of like I was on my own and that I didn't have the support from the healthcare professionals that I thought would provide it. But I'm grateful that I was able to get some advice and some tips from you.
Me too. I'm very, very glad about that. And that's the goal of Brain Talk Foundation, is going around and raising awareness so that parents and athletes and coaches and other educators don't have to feel like you do. Because I've spoken to a lot of people who are like, there were no answers. We got a pamphlet and a pat on the back, and there was no
Hmm.
guidance after that. And so I really want to change that. Um, can you speak to, talked about how your children are in multiple sports, multiple activities. Can you speak to what education about concussion looks like? Is there any kind of literature that the teams may provide, or anything that you have to sign to say that, yes, we've spoken to you about concussion? How does that look?
Yeah, so my oldest child, my daughter, is in a competitive soccer league. So she travels for soccer. It's a club team. And I don't think we ever received any information about concussion. There's a parents' meeting usually at the beginning of the season. We just had it because our new season's about to start after the summer, and there was nothing provided about concussion. And I would think at that level, because it is a competitive league, we're paying extra money, we're traveling, that we would have some sort of education around that, but nothing provided so far. I know when she was first starting out with this competitive league, they did mention that there was a rule for heading the ball, that you use your head to hit the ball. And the rule was that if you were under 12, the heading was not allowed. And I know that that's because it increases the risk of concussion when you do heading. So other than that, having, a rule against heading under a certain age, there was nothing about concussion or to kind of educate us on it. And then my son plays just in recreational league, so not at that competitive level yet, but there's no information at that level either. So as parents, like I said, we kind of have to find out once our kid has a concussion, what to look for and what we should be doing to prevent another one from happening. So I love that you're trying to spread awareness through your foundation, through Brain Talk, and I would love to see more education and more support for parents who have kids in sports, because you don't think it's going to happen to your kid. I didn't expect my son to have a concussion just playing with friends. Like, it wasn't even a game. It was just they were playing like horse or something and they both collided. But if you have kids in sports, it could happen. It's a possibility. So parents should be educated on this. And I think it should be a part of the programming when you have that parent welcome to the season meeting or whatever, or even for the players. Like, the players need to know what they should be looking out for themselves and how to protect themselves from having a concussion as well.
1000%. Yes, absolutely. So that's what we are working on and trying to also get into schools, which is what I want to tap into next because you are the school expert.
Yeah.
So with school-based SLPs, what I'm trying to do, I call school-based SLPs my sleepers because you all are already in place. You're already got your hands on the kiddos and working with them. And a lot of times when I speak to school-based SLPs, they'll say like, oh, well, like that's, concussion stuff, like that's more for the medical side. And, we don't do much with that. Can you speak to any kind of training or knowledge about concussion for the school-based SLPs? And specifically, like with IEP meetings, are SLPs asking about a history of head injury?
Well, to speak to the education that we receive, there's none. So they don't really talk about concussion or what the impact would be if a child had a concussion. At least I've never seen that in any of our school-based training or in any like IEP meetings or anything like that. We do ask on a developmental history chart, if there's been any sort of head injury or anything that could impact their learning in the classroom, but it's very vague. It's not specific to necessarily a concussion or anything like that. Um, so no, I don't think that, it's even recognized in the schools. You would never know a child had a concussion unless, the parent volunteered that information or if the child told you, because even in IEP reports, a lot of times those things are not reported.
I think that really speaks to the amount of work that is, left to be done, which is why I'm very much like we all need to be aware and raising awareness and just talking about it because
Yeah.
even just word of mouth can raise someone's awareness and change how they're asking questions and inquiring about students. And then I think about the TBI to prison pipeline, and I think about how young people in schools can get concussed, and if they don't have someone that they can reach out to who is an expert in concussion, then that could mean that their kiddo ends up getting misdiagnosed for something with behaviors that they're presenting with. If they don't pay attention or they've got ODD or ADHD. And I think that can really decrease unnecessary diagnosis, as well as decrease the amount of medications that some of these children are being put on because the medical experts, parents will go into hospital situations or emergency room situations. And like you said, the doctors will give a pat on the back and yes, maybe it's a concussion, maybe not,
Yeah.
take a break and good luck to you. And if we could get, there's a lot of interprofessional collaboration and education that needs to be done for us to try to get on one accord, because the last thing that we need is more concussions being added to this silent epidemic, as I call it. So,
Of course, yeah.
so I will probably be reaching out to ask you more about the schools because you are the expert in the schools. So just seeing where I can start. I definitely want to like go with legislation and make it a rule for there to be education for parents and the athletes themselves, because young athletes, they look up to the older athletes, the professional athletes, and
Yeah.
if they see and hear that they're being tough or cheating protocols, then that's going to be cool for them to do it too. And if we can arm them with that awareness that you get one brain and you really got to take care of it, then I think a job well done will be done. So that's the goal.
I like that. Yeah. And I think that it starts with, doing, like you said, going into the schools, because that's where you have the most kids who are trying sports for the first time, and when I look at playing at the club level, it's a lot more, I'll say in air quotes, organized, than playing in school sometimes, because, there's just so many kids. A lot of times it's like a teacher who's volunteering to be a coach. So going into the schools to kind of set that foundation with the education, I think would make a huge impact.
Absolutely. And coaches, regardless of the level, they should be made aware if they're entering into that space. Because these younger sports clubs and leagues and, recreational, those are not mandated or regulated by anything. And it's not till you get to college and the pros that there are actual rules and education that's required. So
Yeah.
um, it's going to take a lot of work, but I'm willing to do it, and I know that there are other people who are willing to join in. So we'll we'll keep going. I'll say that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so what advice would you give to parents who experience their child having a concussion?
I think the first piece of advice I would give is to trust your instinct. If your child is acting different, if you're noticing behaviors that just seem off, to trust your instinct. And, for me, I was like, okay, he normally doesn't just randomly take a nap at this time. He's always hungry. He's never like, oh, I don't feel good, I'm not hungry. Like, just those signs where that's what told me that it was a concussion. And so once you kind of make that decision to, okay, yes, this is a concussion, we probably need to go get checked out. Ask a lot of questions. I think that if you go in with some knowledge of what you need to be asking, then it helps kind of get more answers. Because we didn't have a lot of answers, we didn't receive a lot of information. So ask as many questions as possible. Ask them why they think it's not a concussion. My husband was the one that took my son to the ER, and I wasn't there, but I asked him, like, well, why did they say that it could possibly not be a concussion? He's like, well, they just said that he only has demonstrated specific signs. I'm like, okay, but did they say like why it's not? Because they're saying that it could be, but why is it not for sure not, So just asking lots of questions. And then, don't be afraid to reach out to people if people like Dr. Kelly, because they want to help. They want to spread awareness about concussion. They want to educate. So I was like, well, I'm going to reach out to someone that I know for sure has more answers. So I reached out to you.
Great advice for anyone listening. And please feel free professionally slide into my DMs if you are in a situation and you're just not getting the answers. That is part of it. I'm willing to do that. Um, so thank you so much for that. We're getting ready to go into the Candid questionnaire, but first, I would like you to share with listeners, is there anything that you have coming up that you want to promote? How can people find you, get in touch with you, follow you?
Yeah, so I provide education to speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, and anyone who is interested in getting a school contract. I do this through the SLP Business Suite, which is my online education platform. And I do offer ASHA CEU. So if you are a speech language pathologist and you want to get continuing education hours, we do provide those through our courses. At the moment, the school contracting masterclass does not have CEUs yet, but we're working on that one. But I have tons of other courses that I've taught, and you can get CEUs. I also have a mentorship community, so I'm working on rebranding, so it's probably going to be a different name soon, but right now it's the SLP Business Suite community, and we meet weekly for accountability calls. We meet monthly for ASHA CEUs, for webinars, and I bring in people who can help you learn skills to become a better business owner. And then last but not least, I have a course, I'm sorry, I got distracted because someone walked by my window. Excuse me. Last but not least, I have a conference that I'm hosting this year in Scottsdale. So if you're interested in joining us at the Made for More SLP Business Conference, it is, I believe, the only in-person conference for speech language pathologists who want to learn more about business. And so I started this conference because I go to a lot of conferences throughout the year. Most of them are outside of the field of speech language pathology. And I wanted to bring a conference to SLPs where they can learn business skills, because we get plenty of clinical conferences, but not any business conferences. And side note, my dissertation is about the gap in business and clinical knowledge in speech language pathology graduate programs. But anyway, so that's why I started this conference, and I'm excited to offer it again for a second year. We'll be in Scottsdale, July 11th and 12th.
That's right. And I will be in the building. So if you are following, you'll definitely get plenty of content of what's going on. And don't forget about your podcast. Where can listeners listen to your podcast?
My podcast is called the SLP Business Podcast. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other major podcast outlet. And on my podcast, I bring on guests who can share anything about their journey as a business owner. When I first started my private practice, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I would drive to all my patients' homes because I was doing only home health at the time. And on each drive, I would listen to a new podcast just to get inspiration and to hear other people's stories. So that's kind of why I created my podcast. So you can listen at any time on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and we even have it on YouTube as well if you want to watch it live. So yeah.
Always paying it forward. Well, I definitely tune in, and there are gems that are dropped. I just listened to the episode with Teresa Richard, and just to hear you two ladies talk and speak about your goals and how you brought things to fruition. And I really love how Teresa was saying, like, go build the thing, like, just go do it. And I
Yeah.
very much share that. Well, I direct people to you for those who are looking to build and scale. But I always tell people, like, you just have to start. Like, you can prepare, and me as an A type, and needing lists and organization and all of that, like, you can prepare as much as you think you can, but until you dive in, there are going to be lessons that you don't know that you need to learn or prepare for. So yes, go build the thing, just do it, start it.
Yeah.
So I will continue to tune in, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. Here's a quick break with a quick question. Have you joined my Patreon family yet? It's the best way to support the show and get even more of the real, unfiltered content you love. There are 3 tiers. The free tier has previews and short clips so you know what's coming up. The $2 tier gives you behind-the-scenes content, travel vlogs, and me getting real on some taboo topics. And the $5 tier gives you full bonus episodes of Candid Conversations with Dr. Kelly that you won't find anywhere else. We've already got hours of content waiting for you, and trust me, we have a lot of fun over there. So don't wait. Head over to Patreon and join us today. Okay, let's get back to the episode. So now we're going to dive into the Candid questionnaire. These are 5 fun questions that just help listeners learn a little bit more about you. So the first one is, what's one word your friends would use to describe you?
Gosh, the first word that came to my mind is busy. And that's probably not the best word, but at this particular time, I would say busy. However, I'm hoping that in the next season, it's going to be balanced. But for
Ooh,
now, it's busy.
I like that. From busy to balanced. Well, that's going to happen.
Yes.
I can feel that.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2, if you could instantly master any sport or physical skill, what would it be and why?
I think I would like to go back to my days of running track. I ran track for a little bit, and I always said that I wasn't an athlete. Like, I was just there to have fun. I think I would go back and try to do it for like the the athlete side of it, like to compete and to like actually care about winning. I never really cared if I was first or last in a race, I was just out there to have fun. And so looking at my kids and seeing like how much they really care about their performance and all the things that they do to get better, like I would probably go back and do it from a different perspective and do all the things to like be number one.
Okay. Are you a competitive person?
I am a competitive person, but only for certain things. So
Okay.
I do not care about sports. I don't care about, like anything outside of, I don't know, it's just weird. Like things that I feel like sports is something like there's a lot of people on your team usually, so a lot depends on them, right? Track is actually, it's funny that I ran track because it's one of the sports where it can be an individual sport. But when I care about something, then yes, I am very competitive. And it's usually I care about it because I can control the outcome. So, like owning a business, right? Like, yeah, I got this. This is all on me, right? So, and yes, I have a team, of course, but it's a direct reflection of me, basically. So, I am competitive, but not in certain things.
Gotcha. Well, I ran track as well, talking about us being so similar.
Oh, how
What
funny.
what events did you run?
I ran the 100, the 200, and the 4x1.
Okay. So I
Yes.
did the four by one, 4x2, but then I also did a lot of field events. So I did long jump, triple jump, high jump, and I did pole vault for a very, very short amount of time.
Oh, wow.
Wasn't
How
for me.
fun.
Didn't like launching myself into the air with
Okay, but aren't you the same person that says you don't like to work out?
well, yes, but I think track had something to do with that. I mean, we had to run like 3 miles every day as like
Yeah,
the warm up. And
the
I don't
conditioning.
enjoy feeling like I
Yeah.
can't breathe. So I like working out and doing things that like challenge core. So like riding your motorcycle, like you've got to hold your core in a
Yeah.
certain position. Horseback riding, that's a really good workout.
Mhm.
Whitewater rafting, like I like doing fun adventure like things that count as working out, but I
Those are
still
all really adventurous.
well, I still strap on and get on the elliptical,
Yeah.
You don't like it, but you got to do what maintains. And you really have been doing a great job at that. Like your consistency with working out, like I commend you. Oh my gosh, you give me inspiration to get up and
Thank
get
you.
on the
Yeah, I've been trying.
elliptical.
That was one of my goals for this year.
Yes, and you actually drive to your trainer. Like I'm like she drives to her trainer early in the morning. Like you can get up and go down the hall
Girl, and
and
she
hop on the
moved.
elliptical.
She used to be like 2 minutes from me, and now she's like 20 minutes. So that was a big shift, driving 2 minutes to now 20 minutes. But it's what gets me, it makes me show up basically because I'm like, okay, I have to get up and drive there. And once I'm on the road, like there's no turning back. I'm gonna have to make sure I do my workout. So
Dedication and
yeah,
discipline.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, question number three. What's one activity or hobby you find most relaxing or beneficial for your brain?
Um, Most relaxing or beneficial to my brain. So that's interesting because I like to cook. I've always enjoyed cooking. And I did find it relaxing until I had kids. And the only reason that I say that is because with kids, they're very picky. So you have to cook things a certain way. But also, because my kids are involved in all these activities, I have to cook at the most random times. So a typical after school is like they come home and they have to eat like pretty much at 4:30 because then they have practice and they don't get home till like 8 o'clock. And so I like to cook, but I don't like to do it under pressure. And I always feel like I want to make sure my babies eat before they go out there and they have to practice. But I feel like I had to just get everything done so fast and like not really enjoy the process. So I'm gonna say cooking, but not after school, like on a weekend.
Okay, all right. Just to add a little question to that, what does it look like for future Dr. Ebony Green to turn it off? Like, what does that look like when your work hat comes off, student hat comes off, you're just in total peace, total relaxation? Is that still cooking or something else?
Um, I think that looks like reading a book, just enjoying a show. I love reality television, which is probably like one of my what's the word? I can't think, but it's like a skeleton in my closet. I I
We're
like
going to get
reality
into
TV.
that.
Yeah. So I find it, peaceful just to not do anything, just sit in bed and be on my phone.
Yes. There you go. The lull of the scroll. I
The
find that like
lull of the
not
scroll.
having to like analyze or make decisions or all the things, it's very
Yeah.
soothing to not have to be in that space. So I totally feel you there.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4, what's the weirdest or most unexpected item in your bag or car right now?
Ooh, my kids just cleaned my car out. So I'm trying to think of what was in there before they cleaned it out. Um, Orange peels in the back of my, like just orange peels everywhere in the back of my car. And I had to take one of my employees to the airport because we went to a conference together, and she puts in her bag and there's just like dried up orange peels like all over the back. And I'm just like, she probably thinks I'm a slob. Like she's not going to say it because I'm her boss, but like who has dried fruit peels? Just, yeah.
I'm trying to hold it for the
Yes.
sound bite. But oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Dried orange peels, but at least we see that you have your kids eating healthy snacks.
There you go.
Silver
There
lining,
you
silver
go.
lining. Okay, last question. What's your go-to guilty pleasure TV show, movie, or song?
The Real Housewives of anything. So I watch all the franchises. I think the only one I haven't watched in a while is New Jersey, but I don't know why. I just like to watch people, have these lives, live these lives that I probably will never live because they are fighting, then they're friends, then, one day they're going on a trip to Barcelona with a bunch of people they don't like. Like that will never be me, but it's always fun to watch.
I agree. Yeah, you do not peg me as someone who is down for the drama. You seem to
So
be down for efficiency, peace, and
all of the above. Yeah, but not the
yes,
drama.
yes, no drama. I do like some reality TV. My go-to would be probably Housewives of Potomac. I do like the Kardashians. And
Hmm.
I have to cap it at that because that's a lot to consume. But for the same reason, like you get to turn your brain off. These people quibbling has nothing to do
Yeah,
with me. I don't have to make any decisions. I can just watch and use it for entertainment. So,
exactly.
um,
Pure entertainment.
pure entertainment. So yes, shout out to the housewives and keeping the busy people in a tranquil space. That's a
Yeah.
nice piece of relaxation.
Hmm.
Well, thank you so much, future Dr. Ebony Green. We are claiming that. I know it's going to happen. I can't wait to call you
Yes.
Dr. Green. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. This has meant so much, and I thank you so much for talking to our listeners.
Thank you for having me, and good luck with building your Brain Talk Foundation. I think this podcast is a great way to get people to start paying more attention to concussion and the medical side of speech language pathology. I know I'm now excited to go back and listen to some of the episodes that you've recorded with some of our fellow professionals. So thanks for having me, and I can't wait to collaborate on something else in the future together.
Absolutely. Me too. Collaboration over competition. I look forward to what that looks like for us, but I'm always open and really, really ready and willing to support whatever you have going on. So I can't wait to see you in Arizona in July. And thank you again.
Yeah, see you soon.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Candid Conversations with Dr. Kelly. I appreciate you being part of this journey and these powerful conversations around brain health and beyond. If you're loving the podcast and want even more bonus episodes, exclusive Q&As, stories from my professional and personal life, behind the scenes moments, and yes, those bloopers you all love, then I invite you to join my Patreon family, where we always keep it candid. Your membership gives you access to all that bonus content and helps keep this podcast going strong. Plus, every contribution helps support our mission to raise awareness, educate, and empower others about the silent struggles so many face. So head on over to patreon.com/Dr. Kelly to join today. I'd love to have you. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and as always, keep it candid.